Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 15th chapter, text number 20. Yat sankulam haripadanati matra drishtair Vaidurya marakata hema mayar vimanaih Yesham brahat katitata smita shobhimukyah Krishnatmanam naraja adadhurutsmayadyaih. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald and gold. Although crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, they cannot be stimulated to passion by their mirth and beautiful charms. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the material world, opulences are achieved by materialistic persons by dint of their labor. One cannot enjoy material prosperity unless he works very hard to achieve it. But the devotees of the Lord who are residents of Vaikuntha have the opportunity to enjoy a transcendental situation of jewels and emeralds. Ornaments made of gold bedecked with jewels are achieved not by working hard, but by the benediction of the Lord. In other words, devotees in the Vaikuntha world or even in this material world cannot be poverty-stricken as is sometimes supposed. They have ample opulences for enjoyment, but they need not labor to achieve them. It is also stated that in the Vaikuntha world, the consorts of the residents are many, many times more beautiful than we can find in this material world, even in the higher planets. It is specifically mentioned here that a woman's large hips are very attractive and they stimulate man's passion. But the wonderful feature of Vaikuntha is that although the women have large hips and beautiful faces and are decorated with ornaments of emeralds and jewels, the men are so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that the beautiful bodies of the women cannot attract them. In other words, there is enjoyment of the association of the opposite sex, but there is no sexual relationship. The residents of Vaikuntha have a better standard of pleasure, so there is no need of sex pleasure. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport.
Of birds and how there are different kinds of flower bearing plants and creepers and trees. Emeralds and lapis lazuli and hemamayaha, golden vimanaihi, yat sankulam, all of this is possible for the residents of Vaikuntha by Haripadanati matra drishtai, simply by their worship of Haripada. Haripada anati, by offering obeisance, by offering worship, by serving the lotus feet of Hari, Matra, Simply by doing that, drishtaihi. Drishta means to become visible, to become manifest, and to have obtained. So all of this has become manifest, all of this is available for them. Haripadanati matra drishtair yat sankulam. All of these things around in the spiritual world. So yat sankulam haripadanati matra drishtair vaidhurya marakata hema mayair vimanai. Isham. And in these airplanes, there are these residents of Vaikuntha who travel. And earlier also, Lord Brahma mentioned that they are always accompanied by their concerts. And Esham, and these concerts are these women concerts. Bruhat Katitatha Smita Shobhimukyaha. They have large hips and beautiful smiling faces. So, although they are surrounded by all these things, Krishnatmanam, they are so absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Although they are surrounded by all these wonderful opulences, naraja adaduhu. There is no stimulation of any kind of a rajas, passionate, materialistic, sexual impetuses are not there. These things do not stimulate. Utsmayadhyaihi. And these beautiful women, Utsmayadhyaihi, they are filled with joy, they are in a very buoyant mood. Utsmayadhyaihi, by their intimate, friendly dealings, laughing and joking. But naraja adaduhu. But they are not at all stimulating any sexual impulses. This is the kind of a situation that Lord Brahma is describing. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald and gold. Vaidhurya marakata hema mayair vimanaihi. Although crowded by their concerts, who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces. Yesham bruhat katitata smita shobhi mukhyaha. They cannot be stimulated to passion. Na raja adaduhu utsmayadhyaihi, by their mirth and beautiful charms. So, this is the description that Lord Brahma is making of the spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada has highlighted some of the important things here. The first point is that Lord Brahma is describing, as he has been describing in the other previous verses, the situation in the spiritual world and how it is different from the situation in the material world. In the material world, if you want to have opulence, if you want to have prosperity, if you want to have good life, you have to work very hard. That's the most important thing. Right? People say, you must work hard, you must dream big, you must think in a big way. And when you work hard with all such great ideas, then you will have a lot of prosperity and then you can enjoy. So, Lord Brahma is saying, in the spiritual world it doesn't work that way. There's no need of any hard work. Yat sankulam haripadanati matra trishtai. Simply by serving Lord Hari's lotus feet, all wonderful things are manifest for the devotees of the Lord. This is the first point that Prabhupada is making here. In the material world, opulences are achieved by materialistic persons by dint of their labor. One cannot enjoy material prosperity unless he works very hard to achieve it. But the devotees of the Lord, who are residents of Vaikuntha, have the opportunity to enjoy a transcendental situation of jewels and emeralds. Ornaments made of gold bedecked with jewels are achieved not by working hard, but by the benediction of the Lord. So this is the dynamic in the spiritual world. There is no such thing as working very hard. Like Prabhupada says, you never hear in the spiritual world Krishna was going to a factory with a lot of his friends. No, he was simply enjoying. And in other words, devotees in the Vaikuntha world, and then Prabhupada says, or even in this material world, cannot be poverty-stricken as is sometimes supposed. They have ample opulences for enjoyment, but they do not labor hard. They do not labor to achieve them. Actually, if you see in the life that Srila Prabhupada has given us, we are in that situation, in that Vaikuntha situation. Right? I remember one devotee long ago, year after year he would tell me, especially as some festivals come, and like after Janmashtami we have Prabhupada's appearance day, and the kind and the varieties of prasadam that are made, and we all get to have honor and enjoy prasadam. The devotee used to tell me, I don't think even the richest man in India can afford this kind of a food. Right? Or some very powerful men in the world can expect to have this kind of food. That all of us, very simple devotees, are able to experience. Right? And sometimes we read in the newspaper, the fuel cost is going up, petrol cost is going up, diesel cost is going up, and people are all worried about it. None of these things actually bother us. Right? We simply go to the prasadam hall, nice prasadam is there at the right time. Actually, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, he has created an environment where without any worries, we get all these wonderful things. But of course, we are expected to practice regulative principles, do sadhana, practice tapasya. And that is also not very difficult. Tapasya is rising early in the morning. That's one of the biggest tapasyas that we are expected to do. It's not really so difficult. And all the wonderful, and then early in the morning we rise and we have bath, we are fresh, we come to the temple and we have singing, dancing, chanting. It's actually a very wonderful life. It's actually the Vaikuntha life that we are experiencing here without having to do all the hard work that people work so hard. That's the feature of this material world, working hard. And by working hard, you get material benefits. And in the spiritual world, it is just the opposite. Yat sankulam haripadanati matra drishtai. Haripadanati matra drishtai. Simply by serving the lotus feet of Hari, all of this is manifest in the spiritual world. Haripadanati matra drishtai. So, this is the dynamic in the spiritual world. The dynamic in the material world is to acquire all these things, you have to work very hard. And in the spiritual world, you simply have to serve the lotus feet of Hari. And that is what our constitutional position is. This is the information that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving. This is the information that Lord Brahma is giving to the devatas that his sons experienced in the spiritual world. Now, someone may say, okay, if there are people who work very hard and still don't make it, don't get opulence in the material world. Here Prabhupada has stressed that material prosperity you can get by working very hard. Definitely working hard is one of the important components. But sometimes we also have to recognize that there are other components of success. In fact, Krishna explains this in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Panchaitani mahabaho karanani nibhodame sankhe kritante proktani siddhaye sarva karmanam. Sarva karmanam siddhaye means to achieve success. Siddha means to become successful. Siddhaye sarva karmanam. Here Krishna is saying nibhodame. Just try to understand this. Nibodha, reflect, deliberate and understand this. Panchaitani mahabaho. Arjuna, there are 5 factors, karanani, which causes nibodame. Please understand this from me. Sankhye kritante proktani. This is described in the Sankhya philosophy. Sankhye kritante proktani. This is the conclusion. Because there is a lot of discussions on what is the cause of action, what is the cause of success. And here it is said, siddhaye sarva karanam. These are the 5 factors of action. And then we know what are the 5 factors. Adhishtanam, tatha kartha, karanam, cha pruthak vidham, vividhascha, pruthak cheshtha, daivam chaivatra panchamam. Adhishtanam, place of action. Karta, performer. Karanam, instruments of action. Karanam, pruthak vidham, karanam, different kinds of instruments. Cheshtha, endeavor, pruthak vidha. Vividhascha pruthak cheshtha, different kinds of cheshta. And daivam, and Lord's mercy. Atra panchamam. These are the 5 factors of action. So it's very interesting. In the newspapers, very often when I read this part, I usually analyze it from this angle. When some ranks are announced, university ranks or IIT entrance exam, first rank, and all those kind of ranks are announced in the newspaper, and then the news reporters go and ask them, what is the cause of your, how did you make it? How did you get the gold medal? And something like that, right? And these young students give different answers. If you analyze, some of them say, it's actually my parents. A lot of children say, my parents encouraged me a lot. And from the beginning, they were so positive, so helpful, they were so encouraging. My mother used to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, make a cup of coffee for me. Really, they helped me. Actually, what they are describing is adhishtanam. Adhishtanam also refers to situation. A certain situation is needed for success to happen. Imagine in their house, there's no electricity. Parents, they sleep nicely. Why you are waking up, Like that kind of a situation exists. Right? Then the boy or the girl will not be encouraged. So it's the adhishtanam, the situation. They're actually attributing that situation was actually the cause of my success. Siddhaye. So sometimes these young people, young students who have got this award and rank and all these things, sometimes they say, actually it was a coaching class or my teachers were very helpful. They really helped me develop that sense, how to study and how to answer these questions and how to understand. So they try to generally attribute to some coaching class or some teachers and all of those kind of things. Actually they are attributing to karanam, certain instruments that really helped them. My teacher was instrumental My tuition teacher was instrument. Something like that. So they are actually identifying there were some instruments which led to the success. So karanam can refer to senses, other instruments, other extensions of the senses which all help to attain that success. So sometimes they recognize karanam. Sometimes they say, actually I put in a lot of hard work. I used to sleep only 4 hours a day. Last 2 months, practically, I worked so hard. So they are actually attributing the success to cheshta. Their very hard, their efforts, their endeavor. Right? Sometimes they say, 2 years back, my brother got an award like this, and that time I made up my mind. I decided I must also work for this, and that determination that had, actually they are referring to their willingness, their determination, their effort. Karta, they are identifying. You see? So if you analyze these kind of statements, either they are identifying the situation or some other instrumental factors or their own efforts or their own determination, that karta, I decided to do it. If I had not made up my mind, although my parents were very supportive and I had teachers who were very supportive, I would not have endeavored. My determination, karta, that was also a very important factor. And of course sometimes these young people also say, it was God's blessing. Right? We come across all these kind. So actually if you analyze, this is what is actually happening for their success. They are trying to identify the factors, the causes of the success. And these are actually the 5 causes of success. This is the way the material world dynamic is. If you want success, there has to be right situation, there has to be lot of effort, there has to be right instrumental causes, and there has to be an effort by an individual, and you must also have God's blessing. Then success happens. I remember once one interview with Narayan Murthy was there, in a television interview, and the interviewer was asking, what is the cause of your success? How is it that Infosys became so big and so on? And then Mr. Murthy was describing, actually when we got into all this IT and software business, the environment was actually very conducive. You see what he's referring to? Adhishtan, the situation. The environment was very conducive for this kind of business. And whatever those circumstances are, I don't remember. And then of course in the end of some describing a few things, in the end he said, and by God's grace we succeeded. So he's a pious man, very pious, devoted, good person. So he also attributed to God. So like this in the material world, this is the way there are many factors which contribute to success. Unlike in the spiritual world, you don't have to work hard and all those things. Simply serve the Lord, and the Lord's benediction, you get everything. That's the spiritual world dynamic. That's what Lord Brahma is pointing out here. Now, there is actually a reason why Krishna has made this in this way. That these different factors are there which contribute to success, and one of them, an important factor, is Daivam, Paramatma's, Krishna's, God's sanction. But along with God's sanction, there are many other factors that Krishna has built in this material world. It is done like that with a certain purpose. Because the living entities, conditioned souls, they want to get the feeling that I am the doer, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, and they don't want to remember God so much. And that is why Many times, by and large, except for those few pious ones who say, by God's blessing, by and large they say, I worked hard. My parents helped me. My teachers helped me. And I was very determined. I made it. It looks like that. Oh, I didn't know. It looks like, it gives that feeling. You see, because the living entities want to recognize. But actually the fact is, the most important factor is Daivam. If the Daivam factor was not there, all your efforts, good situation in your family and all those things, good teachers and your determination, everything can fail. They don't realize that. So the material world is so constructed, it is meant to give this kind of an experience to the conditioned souls, as though without any God's blessing, I'm able to achieve it. That is the way it is designed. Just like there is another example Prabhupada gave. There was a father, he was a weightlifter. You know, he would go and he had in his home all this, some arrangements, and he would lift weights, 200 kilos, 300 kilos, 500, I don't know, whatever that world records are and those kind of things. And he had a small son. The son would see the father lifting, and the son would always be in admiration. My father lifting this much. So one day, when the father was not around, the son came, and then he saw all these big heavy weights and all that. He tried to lift. A small child, how can he lift? He tried, and then he became a little disappointed and went away. So like that he would come and try to lift, and it would not happen. So one day, again the child came. He was still a small boy. And then he came and he again tried, imitating, like children imitate parents. So imitating the father, he lifted. And suddenly it moved. And then he had seen his father, how he does all those things, and then lifted again, lifted. It was going up. 500 kilos, and then he lifted up. 500 kilos up in the air. And the child was feeling so good. I'm able to lift 500. He was not realizing his father was standing behind and lifting it up. You see? Giving that impression that he was himself lifting it. You see? Because the child desired that I must lift. I must get that feeling. I must experience. Like my father does, I also want to He was trying to imitate. And the father, knowing that the son anyway, he wants to do it. Okay, let me help him. And he was actually taking all the load and he was lifting it. But the child was, see, I have lifted now. Like that. It's actually Daiva which actually makes it happen. But we think, my efforts, my parents, a good situation they created, the encouragement I got. We give all these attributes, recognition to all these things. But the most important factor is that. This is the way the material world is designed. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. Entire material world is pervaded by me. But avyakta murtina, but you cannot see me. That is the way the Lord has designed this material world. That's why when scientists try to understand why this happened, why that happened, why success has come about, when people try to analyze that, they will find different attributes. They will say the situation was good, their hard work was good, the instrumental factors that they used were very good, the kind of efforts they put in was very good. You see, all these different attributes are assigned for success, and they will miss out God. This is what is actually happening. Like say for instance, you take a room, an empty room, clean up the room, floor, walls, everything, right? And you keep one suite there in the middle. You come after 4 hours, 8 hours, you will see ants would have come and infested that suite. Right? It's our experience. Sometimes in the ashram we hide some very special sweet that was there and we thought nobody saw and they locked it up. And then after 4 hours you come and so many ants have already seen it and they have infested it. Right? So how did the ant, take a big hall like this, clean up. Nowhere, no ant left. You keep one laddu there and go. You come after a few hours, there will be ants there. How did one simple little ant figure out there? Actually, it was Paramatma was directing the ant. Dhatharam. Krishna is the provider of everything for all living entities. So Krishna gives the direction and brings the ant to the laddu. But scientists study this whole phenomena and they try to understand what is it that, how did the ant discover? And then they say the ants have this is the theory actually, the ants have a stereo olfactory system. Just like we have stereo hearing, right? Stereo sound we hear. We have 2 ears and we can make out the sound is coming from here, from there, distant sound, nearby sound. So they say ants have a similar stereo olfactory function. So they can smell and they can estimate the distance it's coming from here, from there. And they have antenna which is filled with neurons and they figure out, and there's some, all these kind of explanation scientists give. What are they doing? They are finding the other 4 factors minus the Daiva factor. It is designed like that. And then they will say, and then they say ants have a olfactory mapping ability. You see, all very interesting words scientists use. And it's quite bewildering. Wow, look at this. Scientists have found out that they have an olfactory mapping ability. And, okay, all those things are there. Okay, maybe so, right? They have studied and they have done some experiments. They have gone into the electron microscope and seen all that. It must be true also. But then the fact is, who made all these arrangement like that? See? If such an intelligent scientist is needed to study that, how much intelligence is needed to make that? This they miss out. That is why Srila Prabhupada came heavily on Darwin's theory. That's because there was a spirit of atheism, denying God in Darwin's theory. In fact, scientists say Darwin gave us a design without a designer. This is the expression they say. He recognized that there is a design in this world, but he said there is a design without a designer. And that was the great achievement of Darwin in his evolution theory. So like this, people come up with these different kinds of theories, missing out the most important factor, Daiva factor, which has actually brought about all these things. There are many interesting aspects about this, analyzing the Karanam, and we will continue to do it in another occasion. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.